Jesse, thanks for talking with me. And what I'd like to do is kind of start with just a little bit of exploration of your musical past, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got into teaching, and then we can kind of talk about how that works with FiddleQuest.
I started playing violin when I was 5. I had a Suzuki teacher, and my parents were really into me playing. And so from the get-go, I had like a really consistent practice routine. What I remember is getting woken up at 6 in the morning and practicing for an hour. I'm not sure. That may have not started when I was 5, but that definitely was part of me playing violin. And so I studied with my Suzuki teacher for probably until I was about 10. And then my parents decided to switch me to a, a classical violin teacher who taught at the nearby university. So it kind of upped the level. And I studied with him until I was 17. And basically, my overall experience, and then I quit when I was 17. So the sort of path that I followed was when I was little, it felt very rewarding. I progressed very quickly. I got a lot of positive feedback, and I really liked that. I really liked my teacher. I had a close relationship with her. And I just remember, whenever there were recitals, people would come up to me afterwards and say what a great job I had done. And I really fed on that. I really liked performing. I basically knew that I had it or something that gave me a promising future as a violin player. That was something I was aware of, and aware that I was better than a lot of people. But as I got to be a little bit older, I kind of lost a little bit of interest, and I didn't like practicing. I didn't like getting up in the morning. And at some point, the responsibility for practicing was passed off to me. I wasn't woken up, and my mom used to practice with me. And basically, I didn't like practicing, and I didn't practice. And I started to notice that people who I was used to be better than were actually getting better than me. And it was quite it had an effect on my self-esteem. I started feeling bad about myself, and it sort of became like a vicious cycle. It didn't motivate me. I think, it could have motivated somebody else, but it kind of did the opposite. My motivation was 100% external. It was 100% about getting validation from others.
Yeah.
So from early on, there wasn't this idea that when I played music, I enjoyed it. It was more when I played for others, I liked the attention, I liked the spotlight, and then I liked the recognition. And I remember the day that I had officially quit, I woke up in the morning with the biggest relief I had ever experienced in probably 15 years. And I had my daughter when I was in my 20s. And when she was about 6, um, a lot of her friends played violin. It was sort of this thing that you just kind of overheard about, oh, she's taking fiddle lessons or violin lessons. And my daughter really wanted to play.
Not knowing at all that you had this history of violin.
No, I mean, she probably had to, not knowing, but probably when she's like, oh, I want to play violin, there's a pretty good chance I was like, well, I played violin and it was horrible. You don't want to play violin, trust me. But she kept pushing, and then I started feeling guilty, oh, I'm depriving my child of something. And I tried to get her to take ukulele, because I thought ukulele was really cool. Being able to play chords and sing, that to me was very valuable. That, you can hang around people at a campfire and play the ukulele and sing songs, and that has significance. But why would you want to play the violin? All you could do is grow up and be in an orchestra. But she kept pushing, and she took a few ukulele lessons, and I realized that I was being a hypocrite because my conversations with the teacher is like, well, I really want this to be about her and her choices. And well, she wanted to play the violin. She didn't really want to play ukulele. So I was like, oh dear. Luckily, my mom, I guess luckily, also was like, your daughter, Sayuli is her name. Sayuli wants to play violin. Well, I'll pay for lessons. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I should give it a try. And so Sayuli started taking lessons with you, Duane. You came highly recommended. Um, and she really loved it. And what I noticed immediately is like everything that was happening in her lessons, I knew it, you know, it was stuff I had invested so many hours into. And but it was very different because it was a you know, it was not a we have a destination kind of approach. It was a very laid back, and it was an approach of like about making music. Even when, you know, her first lesson, learning how to hold the bow, and all the focus was the bow hold, and she just played open strings, but she was playing open strings to a track of a song of Are You Sleeping? So it was like she could play Are You Sleeping at her first lesson. So it just had a totally different flavor that I was sort of curious about. I was still a little traumatized from my previous experience, so I was just sort of watching the whole thing, not really sure where it was going to go. And then, interestingly, you were at a place where your studio was needing more teachers. You had more students than you had the time to teach, so you were looking for a way to expand. And I think you realized that you knew that I had played, and so we started having a few conversations about uh, you know, if I was interested in teaching. And it was also just I guess what's that called, serendipitously, I was just considering my going back to school and getting a second bachelor's, because I a career that would pay well. Spanish wasn't necessarily a major that would get me far. Um, so I was considering going back to school and pursuing a master's, and I was about to take out a loan, a student loan. And after a few conversations with you, it just seemed like, well, I have this opportunity that I could try. There isn't really any risk, nothing to lose, to just try taking on a few students and see where it goes. And so I decided to not uh, and it was really hard with school because I had two young kids, and it was online learning. I was doing it at night. I was just about to take my first student loan out of my life, and
Oh,
it
so
just
you had already started classes at this
I
point.
had started classes. And it the way it happened is I got this email from the registrar that was like, last day to drop classes and get full refund. And something in my brain just clicked, like, you know
Nothing
what?
like a deadline to sort of like just focus everything.
And the full refund, drop classes get full refund. I hadn't really thought it. I think I was like 2 weeks in and late nights, and it was just it was like this, the next 5 years of my life were going to be like that. So I had a taste of it, and I saw this opportunity to get out and maybe try something that it seemed like all the pieces were almost in place for. So that's what I decided to do. And so I took on a few students, and it was sort of, I would say, in maybe like the end of a school year, so the end of a lesson year, and then the summer. And it was definitely pushing my comfort a little bit. But what I found is I love teaching. I love working with kids. I love working with adults as well. I just really love teaching. That's always been something. And I found that, well, I actually knew how to teach uh, violin or fiddle. Um, And also something like in the past, I remember at certain times my dad was like, "Oh, well, you could teach violin," or, and I always felt like, ugh, like what a huge undertaking. Like, I don't know how I would teach, what songs, or what, I'd have to get a certification or put all this time. But it just was so, it just seemed like such a straightforward approach that I had all the skills. Everything you were teaching, I had known from my experience, so many years studying violin and playing fiddle. And so I started out cautiously, and that was maybe 5 years ago. It's been I think about 5 years, and so I every year I just grew the number of students that I had, and the first year I sort of had to overcome my trauma and my judgments, because I had a lot of judgments on the violin. That was one thing I think I developed as a teenager. Why not to play the violin? So I had to sort of
Oh, you
undo
developed a long list of reasons to not
a
play the
long list
violin?
of reasons to not play the violin. So I've had to let go of those since I'm a violin teacher, a fiddle teacher.
Have you moved to from uh, violin as a potential, I mean, is really kind of a detriment to sort of a happy life, to violin can add to the quality of life?
So I definitely think that playing an instrument can add to, certainly it has improved my quality of life. And also something for me that I always wanted, that for some reason, just because of my own sort of high expectations, or strange standards, I wanted to be able to play other instruments. And for some reason I felt like I couldn't. For some reason the violin was my instrument. And so since I've been playing the violin, the fiddle again, I've also picked up the guitar, just simple chords, but I love doing that. I've explored the mandolin. I'm really into singing. So I do realize that I am a musician, which is still kind of hard for me to say as an identity, but I am a musician, and playing music brings me a lot of joy. And then I also, I do have a community. I love my students. I like really love my students. I love seeing them every week, and I love camp and getting to see them. And it's a small town, so I love seeing them around. I love their parents. So I have all these people who I feel connected to, as well as you, Duane, and our other teacher in Ashland, Rachel. We've all developed close friendships. Right when I decided to start back teaching, some people I knew also approached me, and asked me if I might want to start playing bluegrass music with them, which is something that I was always sort of interested in. Um, and so I just met with them regularly, and it's turned into a band. So I play in a bluegrass band now, which has just been really fulfilling for me. It's been, I get to perform, which I realize I actually do still like. Um, and I just love meeting regularly, and I love arranging stuff. It's just, I think I guess it could just come down to, it's a language that I speak, and I enjoy exercising that.
Tell me how FiddleQuest as a curriculum just describes sort of what how it works to sort of fulfill some of your own goals as a teacher.
So the things like, it's kind of a funny thing to say, but something that I really love about FiddleQuest is I don't have to do any prep. So I have two kids. They're homeschooling right now. It's a pretty full life, and I can know that in the afternoon I'm going to be teaching for 4 hours. And it's not like oh my gosh, I have to get ready. I have to think about what I'm going to do with my student or whatever. I just know that, oh, when they get there, we'll just log on to FiddleQuest, and I immediately know exactly where they're at, what they're working on, know exactly what's coming next. So I just love that. It just takes no kind of mental pre-prep, which is something that I really like. Although, I mean, I had to learn, the songs on FiddleQuest. A lot of them I already knew. I got to watch my daughter learn, so that was helpful. But and it's fun to learn the songs, but that's like I can still be completely present at a lesson and completely know where to take my student without having to think about it
Right.
in advance.
So, I mean, you've been teaching now for 5 years, but did you feel comfortable out the gate?
Absolutely. I mean, it was helpful to watch my daughter, because I had had no experience teaching anybody ever before the violin. It was helpful to just sort of watch the process, the steps of, the bow hold and when do you put tape on and that sort of thing. But it it's like in some ways it's like a formula, especially at the beginning. Um, you just know level one, they're just focused on the bow. And then level two, they start working with fingers. And so it's just so clear, but also motivating. There's just this whole knowing that my students, like once they get to start making videos, um, that it's just this motivating um, experience they're going to have, and I know exactly where they're going and what the steps are. And then once they get to level three, I just know how great it is. Now they know how to use their fingers. Now they're really making music, well, playing songs.
Hmm.
um,
Are you pleased with your choice of being a violin teacher as a career?
yes, I am. The reasons are I work for myself, which is great. I make my own schedule. I get my own students. That those I'm sort of in charge of, my work, which is wonderful. It's very flexible and it's very fulfilling because for me, the one-on-one interactions and the consistent weekly relationship of getting to see somebody every week and seeing how they grow, and just the quick check-ins like how was your holiday, or how's school going, just getting to know someone is really fulfilling. And then also for me, there's I just one of my favorite things about teaching is not having any sort of goal oriented approach, but someone comes to me because they want to learn the fiddle. And like, I don't know what their reasons are, but okay, they want to learn the fiddle. That's wonderful. I can help them do it. And everybody has different abilities, everybody has different struggles. Some people really struggle with coordination, some people struggle with rhythm, some people just totally have it. And then once they get to level six and it starts to get hard, which might have been more my personality, then they kind of start to lose motivation. But everybody is so unique in how they learn. And I just love feeling like I'm a support and just being present with them in their process of accomplishing something. Everybody has, in my experience, a different learning style and different things that are hard for them, different things that are easy, but it's just so fun to celebrate with them their accomplishments. And every
Yeah.
an accomplishment is such a relative thing. So I have some kids who spend a really long time, learning a song, or a really long time in level one and level two. And then when, to have a student like that who's in level three and they can play a whole song, it's just amazing. And so I love um, celebrating with them and seeing their growth and their success, which I feel like is completely unique to them. There's no sort
Mm.
of like comparison of, oh well, uh, you learned this song, well I have another student who just learned another song. It's just it doesn't matter.
I wonder what you feel, aside from the fact that a kid can walk away being able to play a song on the fiddle. Uh, what what are the skills? What are the things that we can provide? Whether we do it, or what are those other things that happen that a child that has spent, say, 5 years working with you, what will they walk away with?
Well, I think that they will know that they have a community, know that they have, you know, me as their teacher, someone who advocates for them and who cares about them and knows them and celebrates in their growth and achievements, whatever they are beyond music. And also that they have there we do have a community here. We do camp, we gather for fiddle jams. So what I do with my students now, or with my kids, and really not just music but homework, to me what's really important is do a little bit and feel good about it.
Right.
To me it's about building a habit, um, and like a healthy habit. So I actually, my students, I have a lot of students who don't practice and I don't judge them for it. I'm pretty honest with them. You know, if you practice, like, you know, you'll get it quicker. But I have no judgment on them if they don't practice, because I would never, I know how horrible that feels. So I would
Right.
never
It
want.
doesn't sort of get you what you want as far as
Right.
from the pressure being put from the outside.
Exactly. And so whenever I'm trying to help my students build habits, I encourage them to do so little, like even if it's
Mm.
one song, which could be 2 minutes or
Yeah.
5 minutes, until they start to notice like it's accessible. Like I
Mm.
have to practice today, and then their brain will be like, oh, it's only 5 minutes. Sure, I can do that. Doing something consistently, showing up. Um, I feel like is a really good skill that is relevant to to life, to all of the different experiences they'll have in life. And I feel like it's um, the way that FiddleQuest is, you know, even though there are levels, but it's and knowing my story, of course, this is something that's very important to me. I just love that. While there is perhaps a goal, like you want to move through the levels, there's also just like you're playing the fiddle because you want to and because you enjoy to. And there's not necessarily like you're playing the fiddle so that you can play at this performance, or so that you can become a teacher, or so that it's just sort of like this is something you want to do. And so you do it and you show up every week, and maybe you practice every day. Um, and I don't think there's a lot of tears shed by FiddleQuest students. It's not set up. It's meant to be an enjoyable thing. So I just think, I mean, those are really important life skills. You know, if someone in college decides they want to have a certain career, or you know they want to save money for something, I feel like there is a metaphor that, even whether they're aware of it or not, like, well, I played fiddle for, you know, my whole childhood, and I showed up every week and I did it, and I grew, I progressed, I succeeded.
Are there things that you look forward to with as a teacher, or things that you want to grow into or change, or just something that you want to do that you would like to see happen? Um, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to, so all of my students are pretty young, or and since we do camp every year, I'm looking forward to when sort of all of my students are the counselors at camp, when they're the cool teenagers who are supporting the younger kids. I think that will be really neat.